Everything I do well. Ramel has always been cocky. Sometimes he's even obnoxious, so this was probably not the first time I heard him say that. Still, for some reason, I found myself turned off and on at the same time.
Hi, welcome to Work With Me on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, the show that focuses on untapped New York City talent and getting New Yorkers back to work. I'm your host, Erica Collins, and I'm here with a very inspirational author, Eartha Watts Hicks, of the book Love Changes. Hi, Eartha, how are you?
I'm good, Erica. Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm originally from the Bronx. I'm a mother of two wonderful children who are actually older children now. And I actually started writing when I was 11 years old. I started journal writing as well as writing poetry. And when I was 13, I went into songwriting.
Songwriting. So from what I understand, did the songwriting inspire this book?
Yes, actually, Love Changes was inspired by my music catalog. I had difficulty placing the songs, and I had this music catalog that had accumulated over a number of years. So I decided to kind of take my power back by turning that music catalog into a novel.
And have you written any songs that we've heard before?
Well, one of my songs was called Wind Me Up, was actually performed by April Harris, who formerly of the group Seduction, who had formed an R&B funk all-girl band by the name of Coffee, and they toured with my song, Wind Me Up and down the East Coast in the festival circuit. So that got me membership into ASCAP.
So you're multi-talented. How did you actually get published?
Well, I published myself through a loan from Project Enterprise. So I did the work myself, the layout and design work, and published it myself.
And what exactly inspired Love Changes, the actual book?
Well, the actual book itself was inspired by a number of things. One, my song catalog, and then it was also a piece of artwork that I had on my wall called Lay Your Heavy Burdens Down that used to inspire just deep thoughts about love because of the way the artwork was put together. And then also, you know, aspects of my own life and journey and, you know, just lessons you learn about life and relationships and the universal lessons that we all kind of go through. All of that was basically grist for the mill.
Okay, and you're an award-winning journalist. Can you just tell us about the award that you won for the book?
Yes, well, Love Changes itself won the Just Read Award from the NYCHA branch of the NAACP, and READ stands for Just Recognized Education Achieves Destiny, which was their project to offset gun violence in the projects and in the inner city. Me, myself, I'm from the project, so it was an honor receiving this award from the NYCHA branch, which is the New York City Housing Authority branch.
Okay, and tell us, our audience, what is the book about?
Love Changes is the story of a 26-year-old who is eager to marry her high school sweetheart because they just had a baby together. And while she's eager to marry her high school sweetheart, she has a lifelong male best friend who wants to step up their relationship. So that energy gets complicated, her trying to satisfy everybody in her life while learning who she is and becoming a mother. And that's what the story is about.
Okay, and to intrigue our listeners, can you just read us a little bit of your excerpt from your book?
Yes, I can. Now, Love Changes takes place in 1995. So I'll start with a little bit of a section, which is gives insight into the relationship between the character and her male best friend. The character, by the way, her name is Mia Love. Can we switch mothers? Dawn told her about the keys, huh? Ramel laughed. I know he thought I was stupid for telling her. Dawn's mouth was bigger than her behind, but with all my girlfriends out of state and me with no long-distance carrier, who else would I call about girl stuff? Mommy? I suck my teeth. Are you a psychic friend? Nah, my advice is free. Next time, save yourself the trouble. Tell your mom from the get-go like I suggested. Whose side are you on, Chocolate? When it comes to you and your family, I blow the whistle and wear the stripes. Now hold on, I have someone else on the other line. The phone line clicked twice, but the call switched back to me. Ramel's voice had turned to syrup. Yeah, Cosmo, like I was saying, I feel real bad, I really do, because you and I have a lot of fun together. But I've got to be honest, we don't have much in common, so I guess I cut my Mel off, doing my best to imitate his voice, but sounding more like Cookie Monster. It's best that we just be friends. I got a chuckle out of him, so I kept it up. The last thing I want to do is waste your time. I still like us to hang out once in a while, if that's okay with you. I closed by saying, and the Oscar goes to. Ramel's voice was just above a whisper, but it had bass. That combination could lull me right to sleep or wake me up from it. Even though I didn't sound a bit like him, I knew I had the script down cold because he was still laughing when he said, trust me, Chocolate, if I ever give you something stiff, bare naked, and about that size, it won't be an Oscar. Now knock it off. She won't buy it unless I'm composed. And I'll stop there.
So where can our audience purchase the book?
Well, Love Changes is available on my website, which is www.earthatone.com. And it's also available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, Sisters Uptown Bookstore in Harlem, as well as Barnes & Noble Union Square, Barnes & Noble Court Street, Barnes & Noble at Howard University, and wherever Expresso.net and ondemand.com books are sold.
That's wonderful. You have a great cross-central for purchasing. How many have you actually sold? Because I know it's tough for self-published authors.
Yes, so far I've sold about 300 copies.
Okay, and what is your target?
Well, my target is African American women ages 18 to 35.
And what do you need from the B2B, business-to-business community?
Well, I would need for, those who are interested to, one, request it at the public libraries near them, or to, if they're looking for it, or ask for it at Barnes & Noble or Walmart or wherever African American books are sold, ask for it. It's available through the wholesalers. They can order it. If you want it, ask for it.
Okay, and do you have any upcoming events?
Yes, I'll be at the Langston Hughes Library for the Langston Hughes annual book fair. I will also be at the Project Enterprise Holiday Bazaar, which should be in Harlem somewhere around the month of December.
And what is your next book or project?
My next project is Chocolate Love, which is actually told from the Ramel characters, his perspective. And there's actually an excerpt at the end of Love Changes, which begins Chocolate Love.
And finally, what can you give to aspiring authors? What advice?
My advice is to take it one paragraph at a time and just keep going. And if you have to, walk around with like a little notepad or index cards, because that inspiration doesn't always hit you when you're right in front of the computer. So just jot down notes, and when you do have time to sit in front of that computer, put it all together, and you'll find that it'll just snowball.
Ladies and gentlemen, get the book, Love Changes by Eartha Watts Hicks. It encourages women to further their education. For our audience, we're going to close out with an excerpt from Love Changes.
Anyway, how's your job situation? Any word? And Stevenson is still yanking my chain. At least he acknowledges the fact that you're doing a good job. Chocolate, don't insult me. Everything I do well. Ramel has always been cocky. Sometimes he's even obnoxious, so this was probably not the first time I heard him say that. Still, for some reason, I found myself turned off and on at the same time. Everything. How could I combat that? I just listened. My sector was named the top performing in the fund for the 18th consecutive month. I know, but what about the last guy they promoted? Henry Tanner Moore? Man, his numbers are in the toilet, but that doesn't matter when your uncle's partner. Ouch. Yeah, well, that's my dilemma. Let's face it, Livingston Moore Financial isn't ready for a managing director named Ramel. That's why these clowns still have me cooped up in a cubicle. Well, don't worry, when you're senior partner, all this will be water under the bridge. Maybe, but right now I just want my own damn door. Ramel's passion was money and anything that had to deal with money. When he talked about it, his slanted eyes would glaze over and stare into space like he was talking about sex. He used that same voice he used macking, and words would just slide right off his tongue, lip licking and all that. Of course, I tried staring at his shoes, usually those Botticelli Oxfords, anything to avoid eye contact, but I couldn't help but listen closer, so I closed my eyes and concentrate. And then I hear things like PE ratio, cash flow, and IPO. Once he went on and on about liquid assets and drips, it took me a good minute to realize this conversation wasn't kinky. The market was Ramel's passion. If he could make me uncomfortable just talking about it, there was no doubt in my mind he would have his own damn door right on Wall Street. Ramel believed in himself, and just like Spider said, believing is half the battle. The question was whether or not that door would ever be available at his present firm. The only black analyst there, Ramel always arrived 2 hours early, never took a day off, never took lunch, and absolutely hated taking personal calls. He usually asked me to meet him at 6 or 7 in the morning so that we could talk, like that was convenient for me, but even that was never a good time for him. The last time I dropped by was the Friday before I returned to work. I had Tebow strapped to my belly and was half asleep as I walked through the maze of cubicles to Ramel. He was hovered over quarterly reports, a copy of the Wall Street Journal, and a cup of coffee, crunching numbers on his HP and Excel spreadsheet. He was so absorbed with the process of picking those companies apart and comparing them that I was sitting there a whole 10 minutes sipping my smoothie before he said a word to me. To get his attention, I had to ask about stock. Doesn't this firm already provide you with a list? Ramel dropped his mechanical pencil and sat so straight, his spine met the back of his chair and his starched shirt seemed like it was on a hanger. He grabbed his throat. His solid gold bull and bear cufflinks glowed. They were probably 18 or 24 karat, and I noticed his French cuffs were monogrammed. With his mouth still closed, Ramel winced. What's wrong? I asked. My tongue is swollen and it hurts to talk. He had a Mike Tyson lisp. Why'd you eat nuts? Ramel shook his head. I kissed, he said, and then he swallowed. This time he went so hard I felt his pain. He grabbed his throat again and finished his statement. I kissed a friend of mine. She didn't tell me she just ate peanuts. Before you go kissing these women, maybe you should ask, I said. Ramel stuck his tongue out at me. The top of it was white and had split, and the sides were red and puffy. Ew, you sure that's not the herpes? Ha, 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 you're comical, he said, and when he closed his mouth, saliva gushed from the corner. Sorry, it hurts to swallow. You shouldn't be drinking anything hot. You need something cold to bring the swelling down. This might help, I said. I took one last sip of my strawberry smoothie and held it out to him. Ramel shook his head. I wouldn't want to catch nothing. I gave him a dirty look. You'd be lucky to catch anything I've got, and I'll drink. He cut his eye at me, but took a sip anyway. Immediately, I saw relief in his face, so I said, stick your tongue all the way out. When he did, it almost reached past his chin, but was swollen to the size of one of those tongues sitting in the supermarket's beef section. I reached into the diaper bag and pulled out a Ziploc bag full of cotton swabs and baby Orajel. After squeezing a pea-sized amount onto a Q-tip, I held it up to his face, only to have him dodge it. I nudged him. Will you trust me? I said. Ramel took a deep breath and opened his mouth. I then rubbed the Orajel on the top and sides of his tongue. That's an anesthetic, I said, screwing the cap back on. I could tell the exact moment that stuff took effect because Ramel said, oh, whew, and started smiling. I could kiss you, he said in his normal voice. And then he went on to explain his business. My firm has been around since before the crash. We're one of the most prestigious, but here they recommend blue chips. Blue chips? Stocks from companies with a history of steady growth like IBM, Apple, and Intel. Okay, well, what's wrong with blue chips? Chocolate, I'm into wealth building. Now he sounded like Tony Robbins. I could push their turtles, but I'm not afraid of risk. I manage them. How? I offset the risk of the dot-coms with the blue chips, but mainly I keep a close watch on IPOs and other trends in the technology industry. My picks have always seen unprecedented growth. The firm has a legacy to protect. I'm the only blackface at this level, but I produce like a machine, closing every quarter with record numbers. That's why they pay me the big bucks. But they can't hold me back forever. And I'll stop right there.
Can you tell us a little bit about the connections in writing this book, what it's made for you?
Well, my journey has included some incredible writers. I studied under Valerie Wilson Wesley, who was one of my inspirations. She wrote mystery and love stories, and so to study under her was phenomenal. I studied under Grace F. Edwards, Chris Abani, who's a phenomenal writer, Bernice McFadden, and I became a fiction fellow through the North Country Institute and Retreat for Writers of Color, operated out of Medgar Evers College, as well as the Hurston Wright Foundation.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to our segment focusing on New Yorkers getting them back to work on Work With Me on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm here with James Durzick. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started out in the music business in the 70s in Pittsburgh for a chain called the National Record Mart, which was a big Northeast chain at the time. I came to New York City in 1978. I started working at J&R Music in '79 when they were a young company, and I remained there till earlier this year.
So you've been a New Yorker for quite some time. I'm quite sure you've seen a lot of changes.
A lot of changes, of course, store-wise, building-wise, the feeling in the city.
Do you remember what 42nd Street used to look like?
Yes. In fact, my first job in New York was at a King Carroll store at 42nd Street in 1978, and that was my first working neighborhood up near Times Square, so that certainly has changed a lot.
So it seems like you have a lot of interest in music. Do you play an instrument?
I do. I play guitar. I played bass in a band. I also play some keyboards and write music.
Okay, and what are you most passionate about?
I'm passionate about music and also dealing with people, and the job I had all those years allowed me to combine my knowledge of music with interacting with people on the subject.
Okay, and you said you worked for J&R. What exactly did you do at J&R Music? That's a staple in New York City.
I was a retail manager there for a number of years. Also buying was involved, but I was mainly a manager. Doing schedules, merchandising, dealing with people, above all customer service, helping coordinate signings. We had a lot of autograph signings and performances and things of that nature.
So aside from customer service, did you do any other type of work while you were there?
Dealing with the day-to-day functions of the stores and the staff, and merchandising, helping coordinate with the buyers what needed to come in and when and where, things of that nature.
Did you do any special events?
A lot of special events. We used to have concerts in Central Park, jazz concerts as an annual summer event, so I got to meet a lot of people, and a lot of people at these things that I grew up listening to their music, which was fun.
Can you name drop some celebrities?
Dionne Warwick, Tommy James, Brian Wilson, Petula Clark, a lot of the jazz greats, Sonny Rollins, Chick Corea.
That's amazing. And how did you feel when you met these people?
Well, as a fan, I felt privileged that I was in a position to meet and interact with these people, and also help them in some way, helping to coordinate what they were there to do.
So how do you think your skills that you learned at J&R can transfer into other jobs?
In many ways, I suppose. Dealing with the public, which I always had a fondness for, which some people don't realize is an important part of retail. And dealing with the staff, I always liked the camaraderie involved and the teamwork and what was involved, working with others to get things done.
So you're really showing us you have customer service skills, and also that you can deal with high-stress environments, be informational and educational about the product and services, and also that you can deal with celebrities, which I know probably had a lot of needs during that time. How long and how tough has it been for you to look for work?
It's been kind of tough. Like, a lot of my ex-colleagues, it's rough out there, and especially when you're trying to find something in the field, within the field that you've specialized in.
Okay. And how do you think that the transition of digital music has affected the industry as a whole?
It's affected it a lot. A lot of people I know really miss the interaction of going into physical stores and seeing the product and speaking to people about the music. And You know, I mean, I lived through a lot of the changes from vinyl to cassette to CD, and it's always evolving in some fashion.
Do you remember the first album you purchased?
As a youngster, I believe it was a Rick Nelson album.
Interesting. So what other interests do you have?
I like TV and movies, which I also managed to professionally cover because that was part of my domain at work for a number of years. I'm a sports fan, baseball and football, some tennis.
Okay, so basically it seems like you could transfer your skills maybe into other aspects of entertainment, doing customer service for maybe sports groups or other type of entertainment venues?
I would think so, sure.
Okay, and how can people contact you if they want to bring you in for an interview?
My email would be jim.drzik@gmail.com.
And is there anything else you'd like to tell audiences about yourself?
Well, I like being out there amongst people, and I like sharing the knowledge that I've accumulated, and I'm adaptable, I'm a quick learner, so.
What would be the top 3 strengths that you have?
I would say customer service ability. I was known for easing situations which arise all the time in stores that are uncomfortable. Knowledge that I always try to keep moving and stay up with and not be stagnant about.
Is there a challenging situation that you can express how you actually handled it while working?
Well, some customers in any retail situation come in maybe with a bad day and automatically are looking for someone to tear into, and one of my abilities is to stay calm and relaxed pretty much, so I was able to subdue a lot of those type of situations.
Okay, great. I hope that we here at Getting You Back to Work, and we hope you're the show that brings you a lot of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was a teenager in London during the Second World War. I started learning the piano. I began playing local dances. I played in a pub outside Tottenham Hotspur, which is a world famous football club in North London. And then I started off as a career in science, which my father kind of pushed me into. This, you didn't decide, the industry usually decided for you. It's been like that. I mean, people talk about they're going to do what they want to do. Well, you know, back to my my sister's grandson. When he started at Oxford, he went there with the intention of becoming Prime Minister one day. Well, we know Churchill went there, and so did David Cameron and Margaret Thatcher. But it's a long way from wanting to do something to actually getting there. Usually it means making a lot of money, right? Or making more than you did before. Let's put it like that. And that's a very valid way of measuring it. However, if you make a lot of money doing something that you feel guilty about, it's mixed feelings. Like, for instance, probably in the mid-1960s, there was still tobacco advertising on television, and it was very lucrative to the agencies, to the singers, to everybody connected with it. And I made more money one month writing music for cigarette commercials, and a big guilt feeling to go along with it. So, so on one hand, yeah, I got these nice big checks, and I felt guilty about encouraging people to smoke and shorten their lives, probably. We talked about being a freelance musician in New York, right? You know, a lot of it, as you mentioned, was playing the Catskills, playing the Friars Club, playing weddings, parties, and Broadway, you know, and also orchestrating and writing the music for a lot of the people who were performing in these places. The Friars Club, you know, the New York Friars Club on East 55th Street there. Over the years, you would get calls to go and play a party, some kind of major event honouring, you know, some well-known. At one time, I was part of the jazz band there, which was a monthly Wednesday, and for a time, going back a few years, I was a member there. So you see all kinds of what you would call now celebrities, and many of them are actors, and many are comedians that everybody knows about. And I guess the one that you're asking me about is Jackie Mason. Yeah, and we never knew each other. In all the times I was there, he was there at the bar, and you don't go up and say, "Hi, I'd like to say it." You don't do that, especially in a private club. But we sort of knew each other by sight. So just a few weeks ago, I was coming from FAPC, 57th Street, and lo and behold, Jackie Mason is coming towards me, and he looked at me, and we just stopped and said hello. It was one of, as you say, one of those unforeseen moments. And he says, "What are you doing?" So I said, you know, and we talked about this and that and the other. And as a consequence of that, we got together over, you know, he invited me to get together with some of his friends over coffee, and, you know, like, as he likes to put it, kibitzing, you know. No, first year in the music business, I was in Cambridge, dance hall there called the Rex Ballroom, and it was 6 nights a week. And then I went to Jersey in the Channel Islands for the whole summer season and caught TB, tuberculosis. And I was out of action for 9 months. Oh yeah, which was a blessing in disguise. I gave up smoking. Wow. Now, had it not been for that, maybe I wouldn't be here now.
Wow.
And then, of course, once I was okay and cured, I still had, they had a thing, I had a partial lung collapse, and they had to refill it with air from in between your ribs. And I had to get these refills for years afterwards. Now I'm sure it's very different.